Why in this week's Parasha Beshalach does God not lead us on the short path through the land of the Philistines, saying that we will encounter war, be afraid, and return to Egypt? Then he sends us on the long path, and we anyway have a war with Amalek. And also, if God says that we will be afraid and return to Egypt if we face war, then why does the Torah need to tell us that we have weapons as we are leaving Egypt? What exactly are we going to do with those weapons? And in looking at the very first two verses of Parashat Beshalach, we will be able to learn 4 things that we can apply in our daily lives. Things that are critical to live a life of faith in God and trust in God. We will especially learn how to overcome life's challenges. This is the start of Parashat Beshalach, and we're going to do first chapter 17 of Exodus as well as 18, just to open this up. And it reads as follows. It happened when Paro sent out the people that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, because it was near. For God said, perhaps the people will reconsider when they see a war, and they will return to Egypt, to Mitzrayim, which is the Hebrew for Egypt. So God turned the people toward the way of the wilderness, which is Bamidbar, to the Sea of Reeds. The children of Israel were armed when they went up from Egypt. So let's pause there for a while. So in the last 2 parashot, we had the exodus of Egypt, or the 10 plagues that started the exodus of Egypt. Now the Jews were enslaved in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, and God brought 10 plagues so that the Egyptians will not only let my people go, but also send them out with a lot of wealth, with gold, silver, and clearly they also had weapons as they left Egypt. Now, some of the questions we can ask, which is the best way to learn the Torah, is why would God bring 10 plagues and send out the Jewish people so that they can eventually go to Israel? Why would God not take them through the short path, the easy path? There was a nation with their own country called the Philistines. Now the Philistines should not be confused with the Palestinians. That is actually what the Romans wanted to do, is when the Romans destroyed the second temple, they renamed the country, which was then called, it was 2 separate nations. Yehuda was in the south and Israel was in the north. So when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, the second temple, Beit Sheni, it's called in Hebrew, they renamed the place Palestine. Now the Philistines that we learn about in this parsha is not the same as the Palestinians or the people that call themselves that today. The Philistines was a very powerful nation, a seafaring people. They lived only on the coast. They never went far inland in the entire history. They were fierce warriors. They were also very cunning, as you will maybe know from the story of Samson, who was deceived by Delilah, who cut his hair, and after they took his eyes and cut his hair eventually started to regrow, but he prayed to God that God would give him strength one last time so that he could collapse a stadium that they were in and thus kill himself, which is very controversial because Jews cannot commit suicide, and kill all the Philistines that was with him. So there's a big machloket, there's a big argument whether Samson, by doing this, would have a share in the world to come. Did he die al Kiddush Hashem? sanctifying the name of God, or by committing suicide and killing himself. He did kill all the Plishtim as well that was with him. Will he then lose his share in the world to come? So this is beyond the scope of this video, but a very interesting topic to look into. But the question we're asking in this parsha is, why would God not lead the Jewish people through the land of the Plishtim to get to Eretz Israel? First, they need to get to Mount Sinai, where they will receive the 10 commandments, the 2 tablets, with 5 commandments on each tablet. Also, they correspond to each other if you read them side by side, which is an interesting point that many people miss. And we also received the Torah. Now, what we exactly received at Mount Sinai is, again, a big machloket, a big debate. According to Rashi, we received the Torah that we have today, the entire thing as it is, with all the stories. That's according to Rashi. According to the Ramban, Nachmanides, it's not that simple. The Ramban is arguing that if we did receive the entire Torah at Mount Sinai as we have it today, that will negate free will. Because Moshe, for example, can look into the Torah and see what will happen in the future. Also, if you look at the end of the Torah, Moshe dies, and his death is written. It's actually saying there that God himself buried Moshe, and the commentaries ask, why would God bury Moshe and not tell us where he is buried? And what the commentators say there is something that's very powerful, especially today, is that if people knew where the grave of Moshe Rabbeinu was, Moses our teacher, then they would make him into a god, which we have seen countless examples of. We've seen it with Christianity, with Jesus, where they made a Jew that died into a god. We sing it currently, unfortunately, with a stream within Chabad that also is saying that the Rebbe never died, or he died and he's coming back, he's the Messiah. That is exactly why God hid the grave of Moses, so that we shouldn't have this problem with Moses, where people will make him into Avodah Zarah, into false worship, which is forbidden for Jews to do. And it's a little bit of a machloket, a little bit of an argument, whether or not non-Jews can worship God through a shituf, through a intermediary, a partnership. The word shituf literally means partnership. I already made a video about that in relation to Christianity, whether or not Christianity is idol worship. I will link that video for you above, which you can have a look at. So that's something just for the side. But what we're dealing with now is, why would God not lead us through the land of the Plishtim to get to Mount Sinai and then to Eretz Israel, which is the short route? Why would God take us on the long road to Israel? What it says in our parasha is that God thought that if we encounter this nation of the Plishtim, that we will be afraid. And if we learn it out like Rashi, because the land of the Plishtim is close to Egypt, it will be easier for us to return to Egypt. Now, the verse in Hebrew actually reads, Ki karovu, which can mean because it is close. But the ki can also mean which is close, which is a difference of opinion between Rashi and the Ramban. But one of the questions we can ask is, okay, so the Torah is telling us that God was afraid that we're going to encounter this nation, the Plishtim, and then we're going to be afraid, and then we're going to return to Egypt. But in this longer road that God sends us on, we do encounter Amalek, which is at the end of this very Parasha Beshalach, we encounter Amalek that attacks us. So why did God not want to lead us on the short path through the land of the Philistines, take us on the long path, and in both cases we're still encountering war? Also, the Egyptians is coming after us in this very Parasha Beshalach. So we're definitely going to encounter war. So there's different explanations of why God took us on the longer road and rather let us have a war with Amalek than with the Plishtim. What the Ramban says, Nachmanides, is that the Plishtim were a nation, a great nation, with their own country. And being that it's their country, when we come as the Jewish people, we actually only want to pass through the land of the Plishtim to get to Mount Sinai. And then we want to go to Eretz HaKodesh, to the land of Israel. But imagine you are the Plishtim and you see this large number of Jews that's coming to your country armed. The Torah does tell us that we have weapons. Your natural reaction is to defend your country. And because it's your country and you own it, you are more invested in it and you fight better for that which you know is yours than the way you fight for something that you don't really care much about. And that's the same in life. In life, when we are invested in something, then we are much more motivated to work harder, to put in the effort, to sacrifice, so that we can get that which we really want. But when we are 1 foot in, 1 foot out, then we often don't have the same motivation to do what we need to do to achieve our goals. So what does that have to do with a long road where we anyway encounter Amalek that goes to war with us? So what the Ramban is saying is that Amalek is something completely different. With the Plishtim, we are going into their country, and they are defending their country, and they will fight till the end for their country. But Amalek didn't attack us because we entered the land of the Amlakim, but they attacked us because they hated us. And they would have attacked us anyway. No matter which path God led us on, Amalek would have attacked us. But because they were not on their own soil, in their own country, where we are coming in, God knew that they would not be victorious against us, because again, they are not invested in it. And that is something we're also seeing today with the people that call themselves the Palestinians, and I've already made a video about the myth of Palestine, which I will link for you above. But these people are not native to this land, to the land of Israel. I mean, even the name that they call themselves by, they cannot pronounce in their own language. And again, you can watch the video I made, which goes into a little bit more detail on the subject. We, as the Jewish people living in Israel, this is a Jewish land. This has always been Jewish land. We had great kings that lived in this land. We had the first temple and we had the second temple, all in this land and all in Jerusalem. We have documents, books, proving that we own the land. For me, it's very fascinating that everything that has a reference in the Torah with the actual name, those are the places that the Arabs, that calls themselves the Palestinians, debate the most, like Jerusalem. Everyone knows that Jews lived in Jerusalem. We had the first temple, we had the second temple. Wars are well documented against us. Our expulsion is well documented. And this is the place they want to claim, is Jerusalem, because we have a lot of proof that we own this place. There's a lot of findings that they find, which shows this is Jewish land. and thus we are very invested in the land. And that is why when we do what we need to do, we will never lose the land. And there might be periods like in our history where we didn't have full ownership of the land. But Jews never left completely. That's also a very big misconception, that Jews just disappeared from the land. The Ramban, the rabbi that I'm quoting a lot in my learning, lived 1,000 years ago. He made Aliyah, meaning he moved from Spain to Israel when he was 70 years old. And at that time he didn't take a flight with Nefesh B'Nefesh or with Telfed, the South African agency. You had to go through a lot of effort to get to Israel, and he did it. Established a synagogue here. You can still see synagogue in Yerushalayim, and still there is people that believe that we do not own the land. There's also a lot of people that say, but people that converted, for example, like myself and many others that have moved to Israel, or European Jews that lived mainly in Europe and after the Holocaust came to Israel, that we are not native to the land. Who is native to the land is Jews. Jews are people who follow the Torah, who believe that there's one God, there's no other gods, no Rebbe is a god, no dead Jew is a god. We don't believe that there were prophets after the destruction of the Second Temple period. The people that believe in this way, they own this land. So if you go through a halachic Jewish conversion, you too have a part in this land. Now it is a little bit complicated because the land was divided by Joshua. He actually came into the area where I live now, which is in the Shomron. I live in Peruel, and the liberal left-wing media calls it the West Bank, which is also very strange because that's actually where the Jewish people entered the land, in this area, which is the Shomron is the north of the West Bank, and Judea is the south of the West Bank. Now, the Shomron is also called Samaria, which was the name in the Second Temple period. A lot of people say it's a Christian name, so it shouldn't be used, but we call it by both names. Many religious Jews prefer the Shomron and Judea, which was its original names. So it's again very strange that people that have no proof that they own the land, and we that have actual proof, the Jews, that we own the land, the place that we entered the land and conquered, that is the place that they say they definitely own, and we are settlers. It's a strange concept. But again, in today's world, there's men that believe they are women, there's women that believe they are men, so anything goes today. You can believe what you want, because that is basically what society is telling everyone, and that is why we're sitting with the world where we are sitting in, where what should be normal is abnormal, and what should be abnormal is normal. Crazy. So one of the things that we can learn from this parsha is that if we are invested in something, and we really know that this is ours, like Israel, if we know this is our land, this is where we need to live, then we will be successful and we will be able to defend it properly. But if we are sitting on the fence and not 100% sure if this is where we want to live, which I can tell you, I work with a lot of people that is not religious, that is secular, and a lot of them, before the war started and even during the war, said maybe it's better to live somewhere else, because secular people don't have the same connection to the land. They don't believe that we should live here because God told us to live here. they believe that we should live here so that for the first time in a very long time in history, in 2000 years, we can have our own country, our own army, our own government that will be able to defend us against all the atrocities that happened to the Jewish people for 2000 years. This is what's keeping a lot of secular Jews in Israel. And obviously, I work for the Ministry of Defense, so I deal with a lot of soldiers, both secular, religious, in between, Masorti, it's called traditional, and they're all these soldiers that, in my profession, gave their legs, gave their arms, gave their legs and their arms, their eyes. I see a lot of severe injuries. And again, a lot of them are secular, again, a lot of them are Masorti, a lot of them are religious, and a lot of them are Arabs, are Israeli Arabs and Druzim, which I can tell you are fierce warriors. The Druzim have a bit of a reputation in Israel. You do not mess with the Druzim. They are people that their religion is very similar to Islam. They do not accept any converts. They do not marry out. And their numbers have been decreasing because of this problem, that they do not accept converts and they can't marry out. But fierce warriors. I had one guy in the clinic who got injured in the Independence War. His son got injured in the Lebanon War in the 1980s. 1982 was his injury. And his son was injured in this war. Druzim, not Jewish at all. And you can just see what this family, just this family alone, have sacrificed for Israel and for all of us that lives here in Israel. That's also why I recently made a video about should Jews hate Muslims or Arabs, because there is, obviously, with everything that has happened, there's a little bit of a sentiment that people don't like Arabs. You know, they're killing us, they're doing terrorist attacks. And in that video, I explained it a little bit in more detail. And also, I included a video of Rabbi Yitzchak Breitevich from Osmayach. So you should definitely have a look at that video. But I work with a lot of Arab Israelis. 20% of Israel is Arab Israelis. That's why when people say that Israel is an apartheid state. Now, I come from South Africa. I speak Afrikaans. We are the people that created apartheid. Hendrik Verwoerd, the father of apartheid. And the word apartheid is an Afrikaans word, which is my mother tongue. It means the act of separating. That's apart. Apart means separate. Heid is the act of. You can translate it like that. So, I know what apartheid is. I lived in apartheid till I was 7 years old. I was in a hospital that was segregated. The Tygerberg Hospital in Cape Town. I still remember that because I was in hospital quite a lot. If you know my life story, I have a video on here about my life story, and I will link it for you above that you can have a look at. But you can't have apartheid, the act of separation, when we are living together. Tel Aviv, Arabs and Jews and non-Jews and non-Israelis are living together, not always according to Jewish law, but they are living together there. The majority of cities in Israel are mixed. There is areas in Israel that is only Jewish, and that is only Arab. And that is because people choose to live that way. It's actually the reverse of what people are saying. In Israel, Arabs, that's Israeli, can go everywhere in this country called Israel, which you often see the map of, which is not actually biblical Israel. I must tell you. Eilat, for example, is not part of biblical Israel, which is in the very far south of the modern state of Israel. There's a lot of areas in Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, that is part of biblical Israel, which is not part of the map that has become very popular. So Arab Israelis can move in the entire map that you see, in all areas of what is called, wrongly, Israel proper, and then beyond the green line, which is, you don't see a green line. I mean, I drive across that line when I go to work every day. There is no green line. I checked. Look down. There is no green line, which the media calls the West Bank. So they could go, in the West Bank, there's 3 areas. There's A, B, and C. Now, Arab Israelis can go into A, which is Jewish. They can go into B, which is Arab. And they can go into C, which is the Palestinian Authority. I cannot go into B or in C. It's forbidden for me. There's big boards that says forbidden. Entry forbidden for Israelis. For Jewish Israelis. So that's the real apartheid that's happening here in the Shomron and Judea, which is wrongly called by the liberal left-wing media as the West Bank. And what we learn in this parsha is that if we really believe, all of us, I'm now talking the seculars, Masorti, which is traditional, the religious, if we all believe that this is where we as Jews should live, and we keep the commandments of the Torah, or at least make an attempt to keep the Torah, not, God forbid, desecrate the commandments of the Torah. And in my channel, you can actually see, I made a video about what happened on Yom Kippur with these left-wing liberal protests. This was just before the attack of 7 October. So I'm not making conclusions. I'm very far from a prophet, but it just happens to be that I made that video of what happened on Yom Kippur in Israel, where the seculars desecrated publicly Yom Kippur and disrupted minyanim, where people prayed, through books. Terrible what happened there. And just after that, we had the massacre of 7 October. So I think it's important to always learn from history, from what happens, and try not to repeat those mistakes. So if we believe that this is where we should live, and we try to keep the Torah, and even if we don't keep the Torah, God forbid, we should not desecrate the Torah, then we will be very safe here in the land of Israel, and we will prosper, continue to grow, continue to expand, B'ezrat Hashem, with the help of God. But we shouldn't think that it will happen without challenges. And that's the other thing I want to focus on in this Parsha of Beshalach, is that if we took the shortcut, we would probably have lost. Fighting a nation that's defending their own country, knowing that this is their country and they want to defend it, the Plishtim, and then we would probably have returned to Egypt, and that would be the end of it. We would not receive the Torah at Mount Sinai, we would not eventually enter Israel, and that will be the end of the Hebrews. We actually became the Jews after we received the Torah as a nation. So that would be the end of us. Now God took us on the longer path, but notice that on the longer path that he took us on, we also encountered challenges. But these were challenges that God knew that we could handle. And that is something that's also very relevant for our daily lives, is that there will be challenges. We call it tzorot. We actually say in Israel, tzorot tovot. Tzorot means suffering. Tovot means good. So tzorot tovot means, may your suffering be good. Meaning, we acknowledge that in life there will be challenges. There will be suffering. But these suffering that you receive should be good for you. You should grow from it. You should learn from it. And God doesn't put for you a challenge or gives you suffering that you cannot overcome. All the suffering and all these challenges that you have day-to-day life is so that you will learn from it and grow from it and refine yourself. That's actually why we are all here on this planet called Earth, is to work on ourselves, to refine ourselves, to grow closer to our Creator. That's why we pray 3 times a day, so that we can connect with God. And that is why we have an obligation to learn the Torah, so that we can learn from God and know what He wants from us. And that's also why the Torah means, the word Torah comes from ora'ah, to teach, instructions. There's actually a cute saying with the English Bible, which is the Torah, the Nevi'im, which is the prophets, and the Ketuvim, which is the writings. In Hebrew it's called Tanakh, and in Christianity it's called the Bible. Now obviously they added, which they call the New Testament, to the book, but Bible, they say, stands for basic instructions before leaving earth. That's basically what the Torah is. It is the instructions, what we should do, how should we live. So a question that's asked in the very beginning of the Torah, in Bereshit, is if the Torah, ora'ah, instructions, is a book of instructions, then why not start with the first commandment? Why not start with the first mitzvah? Why give us all these stories in the book? Just give us the instructions. So the answer given is that we should learn from these stories how we, as Jews, should behave. Also as non-Jews. Non-Jews are obligated to follow the 7 laws of Noah, which I already made a very long video about, which you can all check out on my channel. But the Torah, with its stories, is there to teach us how to live, how to improve ourselves. In the Torah itself, the first 5 books of Moses, there is no one in this book that didn't go through a struggle. Not a single person. Everyone went through suffering. Everyone had tzorot. Everyone had challenges. There was challenges on an individual level, which we all have, and there is challenges on a national level, which we also all have. And what we should learn from this parsha is that the way to resolve our challenges will not always be short. It won't always be a shortcut. It won't always be easy. There will be challenges. Very often, it will be a very long road to get to your goal. Your goal is, while you go on this long road, is to improve yourself, to work on yourself, to pray more, to learn more, to be better to other people. And then the last question we're asking is, why does the Torah need to tell us that we were armed, that we had weapons? How's that relevant? If we think about it logically, God tells us in the very beginning of Parasha Beshalach that if we encounter war, we will return to Egypt. He sends us on a longer path where we anyway encounter war with Amalek. So why does the Torah then tell us that we had arms? And I think here what the Torah is trying to tell us is that we should be prepared. You should always be prepared for whatever might happen on your journey. On this journey, like we've explained, there will be challenges. And if you're not invested in your goal, what you want to achieve, then you will not achieve your goals and you will not overcome your challenges. But another thing that's very important is we need to be prepared for when we do meet those challenges, when we do have obstacles. And that's why you will see throughout the Torah and Tanakh, the Jews always had an army. Now you could say, God could just take care of everything. I mean, He took us out of Egypt with a strong hand. He split the sea for us so we could escape from the Egyptians that was coming behind us. But yet in the same parasha that tells us about the miracle of the splitting of the sea, the defeat of the Egyptian army, we even have the song at sea in this parasha, which I also made a video about, which you can check out. We also defeated Amalek in this parasha. And yet the Torah tells us we were armed. That yes, we should believe in God. We should trust in God. That He will help us. But we shouldn't rely on miracles. We should prepare ourselves. Like I said, I edit videos for a very big rabbi, Rabbi David Lappin. You must definitely check out his channel. And he always says, what is a miracle? A miracle is when the stakes are high and the odds are low. Meaning that you need something to happen, but the chances of it actually happening is very low. That is a miracle. And we see it at the splitting of the sea. We see it throughout the Torah. It says when the sea is split in this Parasha of Beshalach, that a strong east wind came. Now, why does the Torah need to tell me that a strong east wind is coming? It should just tell me we got to the sea and the sea split. So the commentators say that the reason that God put this in the Torah, the strong east wind, He puts it in many of the plagues as well, by the way, is so that the skeptics can say, see, it wasn't God that did it. It was natural. Strong east wind came, and that's how the Jews got through the Sea of Reeds. The wind calmed down, and that's how it killed the Egyptian army. And that is what Rabbi Lappin is saying. That's exactly the miracle. Yes, there was a strong east wind. It could be that the strong east wind splits the sea. I mean, I don't see it happen nowadays, but not saying it's impossible. So there is a big natural element to it. But what's the chances? Remember, Rabbi Lappin says a miracle is when the stakes are high and the odds are low. The Jews are fleeing from the Egyptian army, coming to kill them. I personally believe they would not kill them. They want them as slaves back in Egypt. But they're definitely coming after them. They're either going to kill them or take them. Depends on how you're holding. What's the chances of at that very moment, when we are at the sea, Egyptians are coming, we have nowhere to go. At that very time, the sea splits. We go through, and it just happens to be that as we are through, the water returns. Or if you want to say, the wind calms down. That is the very definition, as Rabbi Lappin says, of a miracle. And you'll see all the miracles that is within the Torah and in the Tanakh. You could explain it by a natural mean, by saying something happened, and it could happen by nature. But what is the odds of it happening exactly when we need it to happen? And that is a miracle. So we only got to the first 2 verses of Parasha Beshalach. And please let me know in the comment section below if you benefited from any of the messages in this video. Maybe also tell us a little bit of your own personal experiences of overcoming challenges, miracles that perhaps happened in your own life. And I'll see if I have time to make a few more videos on this Parasha Beshalach. I think the takeaway that we should all take from this video is that first, if you want to achieve success, if you want to reach your goals, you need to be invested in your goal. Secondly, life has challenges. There is no way around challenges. You will have challenges in your life. And what we should learn from this Parsha is that the shortest route to overcoming a challenge is not always the best route. Sometimes it's the longer route that is the better route. The third thing we can learn from this Parsha is that we should be prepared. Even though we believe in God, we have trust in God, we still need to be prepared. And the fourth thing, and the last thing, is believe in miracles. If you are invested in something, and you believe that you can succeed, and you know that challenges are from God, but that He will eventually help you overcome those challenges, and you prepare yourself, then you will see open miracles, like the Jews saw with the splitting of the sea. And if you have not yet listened to the entire Parasha Beshalach, read in the original Hebrew, in Nusach Yerushalmi, which is from Yerushalayim, with the English translation, then you can click on this video next. Thanks for watching, and Yom Tov.